Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the work session of the Mayor and Council. We're here with our legislative partners for District 38. We have Senator Charles Otto, and then our delegate by proxy, Wayne Hartman. So thank you for joining us this evening. On our end of the table, Mayor Zach, Councilmember Steve Green, Councilmember Nur, Mary, Town Administrator, and David Gaskell, Town Attorney. I do that just everybody, that way everybody knows who's present. We do have two council members that are absent this evening, Councilmember Nichols and Councilmember Orris. Both of them have family matters that they're taking part in this evening. So with that, we'll start with the first item of our agenda, which is the community center update. This isn't anything new to the three of you, nor to our community. We have talked quite a bit about the community center in previous work sessions like this, but with that we wanted to share kind of where we're at, and in the packet you'll see a copy of the community survey that was just done by Beacon. So Beacon, all of you are familiar with over at Salisbury Bay University, Business Economic Community Outreach Network, and John Hickman and Jess Iacona were integral in helping us, one, formulate the questions that we wanted to reach out to the community about. A summary of those findings are here. You'll see that our ballpark was above 300 participants in the survey, because for them, on their statistics side of stuff, they said based on population, it's then a statistically reliable survey. Our goal intrinsically was obviously as high as we could get. But when you see the 311, what I often say to my colleagues here is that one person may fill it out for a household of 2 or 3, or maybe even 4. So I would say our responses are probably upward of 311. With that, you'll see like some of the most desired activities, some of the facilities that have been requested, some of the peak hours that folks said that they would really like to use the center, and then one statistic that I think is interesting is that 66% of the individuals and households would use the community center several times a week. Keep in mind, we used a map that allowed folks to touch if they were in town or out of town. We realized that some folks may not be as savvy with that type of a layout, so it's possible that we got responses from folks that maybe do live in town or maybe live out of town, vice versa. But that breakdown of the survey participants and everything are in the report. We're not going to go over it intensely this evening, but just wanted to put that on your radar that the community center project that we've talked about quite a bit is really making its way forward. With that, the community center is a partnership between the town of Berlin, the Berlin Community Improvement Association, and Head Start, Shore Up. With that, it's the three of us really coming together to try and bring community center, that a name that probably is not new to all of you, Bennett Bosman. Once sat down with the folks at the BCIA and said, hey, look, we're going to help you with a community center. The drawings were done, but it never really came to fruition after Bennett's passing. So with that, we're really trying to get something that's 20 plus years in the making, moving forward. You agree?
Absolutely. Partners,
Shore Up, who operates Head Start, Early Head Start as well.
And several other programs.
And several other, even energy assistance programs and things of that nature.
Is the county supportive of?
So Commissioner Diana Purnell is on the group with us, our little steering committee, thank you. And actually it's been integral, so it was 4 parcels. The county transferred the back parcel to the town of Berlin. The BCIA transferred 2 parcels, and the town acquired a parcel that was actually going to be sold off.
Now this is where, the old poultry plant?
Nope, it's actually on Flower Street. So if you're going down Flower Street, kind of headed toward the schools, over on the right-hand side before you ever even get out of town, it's right there.
Okay.
We always refer to it as a multi-purpose building,
Okay.
and then the Head Start buildings are right there as well.
Oh, all right.
130 Flower Street.
There you are.
So you Shore Up, and was there one other one?
So the county transferred a parcel.
He's a partner, okay.
The BCIA
Okay.
transferred a parcel. Shore Up leases from the BCIA, and then the town acquired a parcel that was actually going to be sold off. So it's like 7+ acres.
Okay.
And
Oh, that's
Worcester County
nice.
Youth and Family is going to partner with us.
Correct, and we fund a youth
Oh, they-
program.
okay, that's what I was looking for, that's,
Yeah.
okay.
So we actually fund their summer youth program
Mhm.
every year, so they would be an integral partner in this as well.
That's great that they're.
We are very, very diligent in trying to make sure that the public, the community, is involved in all stages of the development of this facility, which is ultimately going to serve them. So we thought this survey would be a good idea of how to document that involvement.
I think the perception
But it's
is
on
that
the-
it's really, the community support has been building. I
Yes.
mean, that's, that's the sense that you have with, and especially with these partners.
And Sarah's whispering about the grants. Yes, the grants, the town is committed, you're good. No, this is a big energy project at all levels. Sarah's been integral in that as well as Vice President Burrell is also on the committee, and the entire council supports it. But $390,000 has been earmarked on the town side of things for this project. We've received a $100,000 community development block grant through the state. And with that, Commissioner Purnell really wasn't even on our radar, but reached out, and Sarah and Miss Washington from the county were both, they made the trek and went and participated in the workshop for CDBG funding. Mary, our town administrator, had some previous experience with that. So we submitted a higher grant request, but honestly, we were very grateful for the $100,000, which is designed for the preliminary architectural and engineering side of stuff. And we have selected a vendor, Haley Architecture, a local firm, that is partnering with us and has been attending even the meetings before she was ever even brought on board, so that she was abreast on what's going on with the community center.
So just the breakdown again.
Well,
So
I've got some more. So 390 is what we have so far.
With Berlin, that's for.
Berlin dollars.
Okay.
100,000 from CDBG. We made a $500,000 earmark request at the federal level, and we're in the final stages with 492,000 from the federal government. That is, and then regarding the study that was just done, or the survey, the citizens of recently created the town of Berlin flag. We got to get one for each one of you for your offices. Maybe we can get that for you. And then with that, the flags have been marked up a little bit. Jay has helped us greatly with his background in all things that fly and without motors. I don't know if you do motors or not, but I don't. No motors. All things that fly with wind. And we've created a town.
Be careful about wind.
We've created a 3x5. We'll keep this Berlin centered. A 3x5 flag that is now flying in Berlin. It's up there, and then we've also come up with, based on demand and requests from the public, garden flags that Jay also helped us design.
Sure.
So yeah, we'll get you the garden flags because we don't want to hide Christmas much.
How what do they sell in Ocean City?
Well, they're about 500 a piece. No, I'm joking. So I think the cost for us was around $11 or $12. We've marked them up to 30 each, and the public, with the understanding that. Well, with the understanding that the
That's some
proceeds go to
staples.
the community
That's
center.
That's some kind of saying that they want.
Well, and we used, it funded 50% of the cost of the survey. So we've done pretty well
So
on
what-
that.
what's the cost of the building? It looks like.
We don't know yet,
Okay.
because
That's-
we're in the very early stages of that. Okay.
No,
So,
no idea.
I was a little
as to
on
where.
the federal, you mentioned the federal twice.
500 was reduced to 492, if I understood it
100
correctly.
was
So
reduced to 490.
One federal,
One federal earmark that is in the final stages.
Okay.
Until they pass their budget, we don't know 100%, but it has made it
January
through.
the 18th.
What's that?
January the 18th.
Well, we've made it through the final stages, so
Maybe.
we're optimistic on that. So 492 for a federal earmark, 100 from CDBG, 390 in town funds, and that doesn't count the amount that we've raised with the flags, and then we had a little bit of a
Are you able
outlet.
to use the slot money?
We are actually using, we've earmarked in our request and our
I mean, I know
plan.
it's got specific.
We have, but we are making a couple of adjustments to the plan, so I don't know how much of that is going to come over, because we
It
are.
sounds like something that
It would
could
fit,
be
but
fit.
we're working with the LDC on how
Yeah.
those funds are allocated. It's in the approved plan so far, but I don't want to put that down
Yeah.
as firm, you know what I mean?
Wayne, to your
Absolutely.
point, reason there's no plans yet is because we wanted to have the community survey first to figure out what people want out of the community center. From that, the architects then can build the rest of it.
How long do the funds, like the federal funds and stuff, how long are they?
Well, the CDBG funds came with a tight timeline, which we were able to achieve because we had already done RFQ services for town halls renovation, for the new public works building, and we threw in the community center with that as well. So we ended up settling with 2 firms. Dr. Morgan's handling some of the work, Haley Architecture is handling some of the work. Part of that, Haley Architecture has the community center. So with that, the tight turnaround time for the CDBG funds we're able to achieve. We don't know the restrictions yet on the year-round. So with that, it is a sub-item here, so 2A, if we would like to discuss sometime offline, potentially the idea of maybe a bond bill that could help assist with some site work at the community center, just to keep that project, as you noted, Senator, a lot of energy around it, a lot of community support, just to try and make sure that it doesn't stall out, to get us through to fruition on the fundraising side. We realize it's going to require a lot of capital funds, probably from the private side, to be able to bring this through the finish line, but we just want to make sure that we're ready to go on that.
So that's helpful for us to know this, at this point in the process. Of course, you've heard that, how tight the budget will be, but I think what we try to do, first of all, to understand the requests that may be out there, which it looks like, you all would be prepared to apply for that. As you all know, the sooner you lay your groundwork, and again, trying to manage expectations, whether it's, you know that you're going forward with this and it's a community priority, that, you start working the process this year, whether it's teed up for this year or next year, it's a process. And
We just
so-
want to get it on everybody's
and I
radar.
think that's important, that you're laying this groundwork this evening. And, I've kind of reflected, over time when different communities come in with their requests, you really try to work through on, have they received bond funding in the past? Is this a new project we're supporting? Is it the first time? Is it something that, we look at and we might be able to maybe see if we can get a certain amount this year and look at it first. So, and of course, what also has changed in the process, and I want to make clear, and it's a little bit different for us, is in the past, the House and the Senate could request separate projects and kind of be working on, and comparing notes, but now there's, the direction is for, if there's a community request, both the House member and the Senate, would make the request. So it's something that we need to consider as we do our strategy.
And we're open to that. Like I said before we started, this is very surface level. We just want to get it on everybody's radar, but certainly the start of the conversation. Not
But I think what's important is that the fact that there seems to be movement, and also the fact, which, what we're always asked is there support at different levels? Yes, Berlin already has skin in the game. Yes, there's already some,
Absolutely.
right.
Everybody.
So that's why I was kind of, as I was making my notes, to see where the different funding sources at this point were coming from.
And then when you get the final, rough idea, then you have the governor's budget, for, to try to get in.
If we can get it
chunk
in
of it.
before,
Capital
and not
bond money
make
is
it
really
wrong.
diminishing, and they're really trying to manage their expectations, $50,000, $75,000. But if it's a $3 or $4 million project, then try to get a line item in the governor's budget, and that would be around this time of the year that those requests would be.
Just to
going
be
in.
clear, we're not looking at 3 to 4 million at this stage. This would be site work. For us, we're thinking about 250 for site work. We realize that we're not going to get
Just
all of
saying
that.
as a total, it would-
Right, certainly.
Exactly, then go after the governor's budget. It's, for the larger
Actually, Delegate Hartman just reminded me on the governor's budget process, it's much more formalized now. As a matter of fact, I believe to make requests for this time around, the deadline is Friday, November. Now, these are for these bigger projects,
Right.
as opposed to, but as far as, when you have those bigger projects and you're trying to get them into the governor's budget, before it was more kind of a letter and making the case. Now there's a more formalized process with certain, documents required and deadlines. So, we're obviously aware of that now because that system is new. So that's something more for the future, I think, for the
That's what I said,
government.
at this time of the year, where it's moving forward, this time next year, something would be when you would be pushing, when you have
A little bit more of an idea of what we're after.
what you're doing.
If you had something in June or July, that would be,
Okay, so maybe next year, think about like June or July.
we could do that.
Have I overlooked anything on our end with the community center?
And maybe we can get the governor there about the same time.
I've talked to him about this, I've talked to him directly about this, so he's
And
aware.
that's
June or
helpful.
July is a good time to get the governor down there.
Yeah.
And follow up with that letter, October, November, and when he's here for MML or
Yeah.
MACO, that'd be a great
Yeah.
project to get him in front of. So if it's moving along, and with our connections to Jake Day
Yeah.
being there, it helps as well, so.
With the community center?
No, I just wonder if they have any insight on the like Cardiff, if we know. We're just still waiting to know. for
We
sure.
are in limbo with the 492, but it's just waiting for the federal budget. But- All right, we'll move on to the agenda item 2B, which is the Maryland Municipal Electric Utility Alliance. It is probably the first time you have heard this, but Senator, you will probably, with your committee placement, hear this a little bit more. The municipal electric utilities, the five of us, are coming together in a formal way. We've all advanced similar interests before, and you all have helped us with that. The RPS legislation being one of the key ones that have saved our residents $100,000+ a year just in those type of renewable energy credits. But wanted to put it on your radar. We've shared the draft articles of incorporation just so you have those. Senator Feldman toured Easton, and I'm pretty sure Easton shared those documents with Senator Feldman
You
as
got
well.
good people at Easton Utility.
We do. We work very closely with them. Port, Thurmont,
Yeah.
Easton,
Yeah.
Berlin, and Hagerstown. We're all together on this. So it's important. We wanted to make sure realize these are
So-
drafts. Once they're fully executed, we'll share copies with you as
Who's
well.
operating the utility now? That's-
For Berlin,
Yeah.
we are Tim Lawrence. He's from
All right.
Manassas, Virginia. He's been with us for a decade.
A while.
But you're not having somebody manage the line?
Our electric crews, they report to the director, which is Tim Lawrence. We have several consultants that we also work with. It's a highly technical utility. With that, we use Luth and Associates out of North Carolina. They do a lot of our back-end statistical work and calculations. We're a member of AMP, the American Municipal Power Association. They're out of Ohio. They work very closely with Luth and Associates and with us. And together, that's really the core group of who we have. And we have to the next item on the list is the Public Service Commission. But
I'm sure you have a good relationship with Chop Tank Electric Cooperative and
Chop Tank,
Delmarva Power as well.
we have a working relationship with all of them.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And we have what do you call it? We just had to go through it with Chop Tank.
Mutual aid.
Mutual aid,
Yeah,
thank you. Mutual aid
absolutely.
agreement with Chop Tank to assist if they were out.
And they will.
Yes, and we've actually sent our crews before as far as Florida
Absolutely.
to assist under
Yeah.
the cooperative that we have with AMP.
Yeah.
But
You mentioned that Chair Feldman has been briefed by Easton. Chair Feldman is starting to pull some of us together informally since, we have so many high priority energy issues. I certainly will kind of reinforce this, but is there anything particular other than, Berlin's part of this? And
Berlin's part of this. we would be interested in potentially deregulating from the Public Service Commission. With that, you brought up Chop Tank.
Yeah.
Chop Tank is member regulated.
That's southern.
And I don't know if member regulated than a municipality. We are answerable to the customer, which is the citizen and the ratepayer. With that, we would love to explore that. We've had that on our agenda for a couple sessions now, but we've kind of kept that in the back burner a little bit, but I would expect that in the session to come, or maybe the future session, that would start to come up a little bit more. We spend a lot of our time, and Mary, you can attest, you and I go down every December, I won't be there this year, but every December to the Public Service Commission to do our rate case, and we spend a lot of our time explaining who we are. They want to say you're shareholders, and we're like, it's really our residents, we're a municipal, there are 5 of us, right? They don't deal with us on a regular basis. So they
We're
really
just small
don't.
potatoes. Yeah.
Right, our capacity is so small that it's not even a blimp on the radar. But with that, we spend several $100,000 a year to be regulated by the Public Service Commission and explain most of what we're doing to them during our rate case. So we understand that they've got a lot of work. We understand that they serve a really good public need. We just don't know if municipal electric utilities, there might be a better way, right? And Chop Tank has kind of laid that platform of what that better way could look like. And we would like to see similar treatment. I think so too. I think there is. But I think it starts with a conversation, which is what we're having tonight. So.
You had mentioned the small capacity you have. Are you experiencing any problems with the conversion to electric, with the electric vehicles and so forth?
We're seeing increased demand.
Right, so, I mean,
yeah.
how are you guys set to?
So we buy directly. We, with Booth and Associates, project forward. Our most recent contract that we're looking at is calendar year 2026 to 2030, right? So we're buying power years in advance and locking in those options.
Okay.
We do that with Booth and Associates. That would stay the same. Like the town of Berlin Mayor and Council are not the folks that need to be projecting that demand. With that, we are seeing increases in demand year over year with the transition to electric. That takes its toll on anything. Tim can talk more knowledgeably about that than I can, but transformers and demand-based customers, we're seeing increases in those. Everything's transitioning electric, so
There was a bill that passed in 2022 that mandates large commercial buildings, 35,000 square feet and larger, push towards electric. And by 2031, there could be penalties to those commercial buildings for the amount of fossil fuels they're burning. And new construction of those buildings, they're going to be mandated to go electric. So the demand for electric is going to continue to increase. I do have a bill. Do you have any buildings for government-wise over 35,000 square feet?
I don't think so, and I don't know what Public Works is coming in at, but that might be the only one that might get us.
That's the only potential I
So,
see.
so I'm going to have
But a lot of that's warehousing too.
I'm going to have a bill this session to exempt government for public safety buildings, anything that's, determined to be a shelter or whatever, because we wouldn't want to find.
Community center would be.
It's over 35,000.
I mean, I would venture to say the community center would be over 35,000
Yeah.
square feet.
So,
That's a huge base. I don't know if it'd be that big. 35,000 square feet.
That's 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah. that's-
35,000 square feet.
35,000 square feet.
I think
It's-
schools.
Well, to put it in perspective,
I mean, they're bigger than that.
schools are exempt.
No, I'm just saying,
What's
size-wise,
the-
as a comparison.
So just to let you know, I'm going to have a bill to exempt government buildings that fall into those
So
categories.
35,000 square feet, our
Right.
Public Works building will not exceed that.
I don't think so.
So if it's of interest to you when it comes around, I'll let you know for getting folks up there to testify,
Thank you.
if it's going to impact you in any way.
So you're just distributing electricity?
No, we actually operate a peak shaving plant, so it's kind of been, we should get you all over there. I think we've had you there before, but the power plant's over on William Street. We generate during peak times, so that can occur in the winter as well as in the summer.
As diesel?
We have some old locomotive style looking engines, and then we have natural gas. We're switching more toward the natural gas. We have had previously some assistance through the Maryland Energy Administration. We've received some grants. We've made the conversion and the necessary improvements that we would need to put 2 more natural gas generators online. But the capital cost of that, you're looking at $10 million a unit. We have 1.
So you're generating.
We do for peak
distributed,
times.
So would
We backfeed to the grid.
would you be interested if there was a small package nuclear plant?
What we would be very interested in is a pathway to fund 2 new natural gas generators. You're looking at $20 million.
Good answer.
But with that, each megawatt hour that we generate is $100,000 in savings to our customers. So we generally save about
When-
$500,000.
When you're generating.
Correct. During those peak times.
And just as a note, for the past couple of years, our rates compared to Delmarva and Choptank have been the lowest.
If you're cheaper than Chop Tank, you're doing good.
Cheaper than Choptank.
Can you make a note that we'll give them the breakdown of our electric costs? But with that, each megawatt hour is $100,000 basically as a rule of thumb. So when we hit those peaks with assistance of PJM or with Booth and Associates, we are saving the customers about $500,000 a year in energy costs.
That's great.
And when you have just the little north of 2,500 customers.
So you
So,
mentioned you're trying to increase your natural gas.
We're trying to take the old diesel locomotive side offline and transition to natural
And
gas,
then who's your supplier?
Chesapeake Utilities. So
You got a good supply. I
Yes.
mean,
we do. We would have to increase the size of the line that's coming in
Oh,
for,
on your side, yeah.
correct.
I mean,
We've worked with,
they got ample supply to provide.
correct, it would transition our customer, we would move from we would move to a demand-based customer, which would increase some of our costs. We're working with Chesapeake Utilities on that. But from a resilience side, if we had 3 natural gas generators, we could power the hospital and the town in
With
a
that,
time of,
yeah.
in a time of need, yeah.
So you mean you're trying to move to that number?
We are trying to replace the old locomotives because
Right.
they can't produce as much with 2 natural gas. We had 5.
Okay.
We would like 3. But instead of having 4 of the locomotives, we'd like to downsize to 2 of
So
the
what kind of cost
Natural
is
gas.
that we?
20 million. Do you have that?
We are small.
Maybe you can get Patsy to send them a check.
That's hardly for another day, but the big thing is, what really helps us get there, you want to know something interesting, is that
Energy czar.
the Public Service Commission, the way that it works, right? So if we want to bring on a new water well, right? And we wanted to do that capital cost. We, as the town of Berlin, could say, we want to finance that and pass that along to the customer in an incremental
right.
amount. We can't do that with the Public Service Commission. We have to buy the unit up front, and then we would have to go to the Public Service Commission and say, can we get reimbursement? So you can never finance future capital costs like a $20 million project when we're
Because
bound by the
they're
Public
treating
Service.
you
They
as a
set your
major
rates.
utility. That's that, they're
Exactly.
treating you as a
Bootstraps
major
us.
And the major utilities are often publicly
So
traded, so they have.
If we deregulate, we could afford a bond for $20 million, and we could build that in.
So the answer to the bigger question is part of the deregulation.
Yeah, we don't need the 20 million as much as we need the deregulation,
Deregulation.
so,
So that's the bigger issue.
correct.
Sounds good.
When you all have time, you really should, I would suggest that you come see our operation.
Be happy to.
And you will see a small, efficient, well-managed
I've never had that qualms.
operation down here
I would
in
like
this
to
small
see it,
town
yeah.
of Berlin. You really should come see our stuff, and you will be impressed.
And a lot of that is the leadership too of Tim and his group, because years before, we would have times when power was out consistently. The average outage time, I think, for a customer or a utility our size is 60 minutes. We're 23. So
And
When
that's
we-
generally only during serious weather
Right.
events.
Yeah.
So Mayor, the other
Right.
four utilities are the one new,
Trees down.
do they have the same sentiment for deregulation?
We all share that, yes.
So that would make it helpful when you have
It is.
other
It's-
delegates, other senators from other parts of the state advocating for the same.
Our goal is to make that probably our key priority for this year.
And I was going to ask along the lines, looking at your alliance, and I didn't know if you mentioned kind of Easton maybe taking the lead, or are you also working with anyone else, a lobbyist or anyone else?
We have brought on, in conjunction with Easton, each year Easton employs Brett Leininger. He was with
Yeah,
Old Line.
he's good.
He's not with Old
Yeah.
Line anymore. I forget what he is.
He's
In my
good.
brain, he's still with Old Line, but it's not.
Yeah.
But Brett Leininger is the lobbyist.
Okay.
Easton wanted to bring them on during the RPS legislation that we were working with, and they asked for a proportionate share. I think Berlin's been the only member that has consistently shared that cost of Brett proportionately, and we have no intention of deviating from that.
So,
It's been great.
we don't have to get into too many of the details, but the bottom line is you have someone that's kind of coordinating the effort with all 5 of the municipalities that are in this alliance.
We do, yes.
And then that gets into the strategy on deregulation.
Yes.
Okay.
And Berlin has Kirk Folks there now too on their thing. He came from Farm Bureau and from the
I know he,
Farm Credit.
right now I know him.
Yep, he's connected.
But I think,
But Brett's a good man, and you had
Oh, he joined
American
Easton,
Joe came with him
Brett is
back
not.
in
No,
there.
that I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
One more thing about these diesel generators, it's becoming more and more difficult to get the parts for them, and the cost
Well,
of maintenance
there's- yeah.
goes up significantly, so. it's
And the
important.
emissions.
Yeah, and the emissions, so.
And we're located right in downtown Berlin. We're cognizant of the emissions, and we want to, natural gas is a better way.
Correct.
So,
Absolutely.
all right, anything that we may have missed on that, we'll be cognizant of time. All right, reconnecting communities and neighborhoods. So this gets into, it looks like a longer agenda item, but really, I can summarize it pretty quickly. We received a federal grant through the bipartisan infrastructure bill for reconnecting communities and neighborhoods. It's a neighborhood access and equity grant of $1.2 million. Part of the grant is for the Berlin Bikeways project, which all of you have written letters of support for us in the past. That is not rails to trails, it's rails and trails. Charles brought that to our attention, rails and trails. We're not getting rid of the railroad. Catherine Banks, the Maryland Delaware Railroad, great partner.
Absolutely.
But we're trying to build that, right? And part of that is, this federal grant. The other part of that is a planning grant for overcoming the Route 113 highway. So if you look at a map, it cuts Berlin right in half, right? And we're cognizant of the fact that it creates an imbalance when accessing services, right? So whether that's schools, whether that's shopping, whether it's government buildings, healthcare, it's not easy for folks that may live in the Flower Street neighborhood to be able to get across 113 safely. You add that or compound the fact that folks have been injured trying to cross the highway, and it just creates this, even if it's not statistically there with folks getting hit all the time, it creates a mental block that says, it's not safe for me to walk across the highway. It's not safe for me to bike across or take my children across. So we do a good job of trying to spread amenities out throughout our parks. So if I want to play basketball, I gotta get in the car to drive over to Henry Park to be able to play basketball safely. We want to overcome that, and the federal government has recognized that and awarded us the $1.2 million for the planning side of the grant.
So is the 1.2 million, which is a federal grant, and it's under this broad reconnecting communities and neighborhoods, is that broad in that it opens the door for multiple projects
It does. So
as
a big
opposed to
component.
focusing on one project?
Well, a big component of it is community planning, right, and community meetings and bringing folks together to help trying to overcome this, right? We want to know that, and the reason the bikeway is in there is because that's like the backbone, right? How do we connect that with the Worcester County master plan that's being done? And
Right.
we've provided comment in that as well, pretty integral comment, in how we connect downtown Berlin with Assateague, Ocean City, and Snow Hill. I don't think we really went west, but ultimately that would be great. With that, the bikeway ties in, and with that, we got to be able to overcome the highway. So one of the ideas that we're working through, it's not solidified in stone, is the potential of a bridge that would go over 113.
SHA has that in budgeted for a study, correct?
Well, SHA is working with us. They are a partner in this grant because the red tape associated with federal grants is pretty vast, and our staffing model is pretty lean.
Yeah.
And so we're partnering with SHA because they've got more tools at their disposal, right?
So,
And
I'm kind of thinking broad topic, possible project of a bridge, but kind of why the project goes back to the goal of reconnecting. I also know from experience, our experience with SHA, is that, they sometimes, you bring them sometimes the issue as opposed to here's the solution. Like, as you all know, it takes a while sometimes to lead up to a light when they want to see if you've exhausted all the other tools before you go to a light. I don't know if this is a case, again, because you brought in SHA and just the experience we've had, if the bridge idea is something that is one of many possible options.
It is one of
Meaning,
many
like, it could
possible
be a
options.
bridge, it could be, I'm assuming,
Better
crosswalks,
crosswalks,
which is what it took us a while to do in Ocean Pines. And so I just think it's important that we maybe stay open to all the options
Mhm.
and what might be most feasible, given, I think that's a better way for success on
And
one part of the project.
that's certainly the approach we're taking. We're working very closely. We have weekly calls with SHA, Sean
Right,
Winkler,
okay.
Cheryl. We have brought in the District 1 office as well. But we have weekly calls with them on just this grant and trying to get it across the finish line as far as the paperwork that needs to be done. So we can get to the community planning side, which is how do we address this challenge?
Okay,
Right.
so what I'm hearing is you're laying that groundwork for the community planning, and not so much, we're gonna use the 1.2 million for a bridge that we don't.
We are
know.
not building
Okay.
anything. With this grant, we are not building, well, yes, we are. We're building the
We're building the
bikeway.
bikeway.
But we are not building anything else.
And I
This
think-
is planning.
And I think this is good, and this is good that it's a public discussion, because I think sometimes people will hear, one project, and it's really an overall approach. That's, the 1.2 million was awarded for an overall approach,
Correct.
which could be multiple ways.
Which will be, it's not could be, it will be multiple ways.
ways.
Because it's, how do you bring Flower Street to downtown? How do you take folks that are visiting
Right,
that may want to go to like Burley Oak? How do you do
Right.
that safely?
Right.
How do we
Right.
go from one neighborhood to another?
Right.
Yeah, athletic fields, community center, parks. Like, we want to have a plan, and right now we don't have one.
right, and if you do this right, I mean, it's really, if you do this right, it's a tremendous asset, because then you're moving people around in a safe way, right?
Have
Now-
you seen that in other communities where they wanted X project, and they were, adamant about that, but yet the state wasn't willing to do that?
I
Oh,
think,
yeah, all the time.
I mean, I think.
Even though they had the money?
I think part of it is, it goes back to what are you trying to accomplish? And, is it the most efficient, costly way? And is there community support for it? So all the pieces come in. So I'm just, from the standpoint of, you already confirmed, it'll be multiple approaches that, you wouldn't, if, I'm sometimes a big believer in what is the low-hanging fruit. The low-hanging fruit could be, anytime we tie issues to safety, and also costs factor in. So if there's a way that with this community planning, we can get started right now on some access issues with crosswalks and something that, again, low-hanging fruit, not as expensive as opposed to, maybe just a total focus on a covered bridge that might not.
We're not
yeah.
zeroed in on any strategy other than we want to make sure all of our neighborhoods are capable of being interconnected safely.
Yes.
That's really what we're after. That's the, you agree?
Absolutely.
And
We are
check out the
really-
tunnel too.
We are really
Works for it.
interested
Everything's on the
in
table.
addressing this concern. And I
Because
think
ADA
we realize
goes
that,
into the whole
that
thing.
a bridge may
Build a
not be
bridge,
the
you got
most
steps. or-
economic and feasible avenue, but we are open.
Correct.
That, it's good, and I hear you, all the options are on the table.
Yeah, I understand.
Anytime we can keep tying it back to safety, that is,
That's
that's
a
the way we
perfect
will be,
segue into our next
that's the way we will be successful.
It really is, because the next part is really geared towards safety, and it started in your all's court, which is Maryland 210. With that, it was brought to our attention that speed cameras typically don't go on highways, but in the bill, let's see what it is, bill number, I think it was from 2024 session, House Bill 974, it placed one camera on 210, which ended up being 6. We're not trying to get to 6, but we wouldn't mind the discussion of potentially having one camera on 113 that is designed to address, because the safety challenges we know could be there, and they are there, but as you all know, funding is a challenge most of the time. So with that this money does not come to the local level, it goes to the comptroller's office, sits in a bucket, and is ready for when the state needs to leverage federal funds or needs funds to be able to help improve safety on 210. We would like to explore the possibility of the same thing for where you step down into the urban zone of Berlin on 113.
You're not going to get my support on that.
And that's understandable.
I'll tell you.
That's understandable.
Straightforward.
But
Well, I think, well, first, I'd like to better understand the request, and if this is something that you are working with the county on this as well?
we have not. It's been part of our discussions preliminarily with the Reconnecting Communities and Neighborhoods grant about how do we get from where we are to where we need to be, right? So if it's increased crosswalks, if it's sidewalks along 113 that lead to a central
Right.
point, how do we fund that? Because it's expensive. We're looking at the.
Well, you're with it, Berlin Intermediate is in a school zone. You ought to be able to get a camera there.
We have them in neighborhoods that have been identified with a study, and they are working really well. Like, there was a lot of speeding in the Flower Street neighborhood, 1,200 or something,
Yes.
vehicles that
Real well.
exceeded the threshold, which was at 10
I
miles
mean,
an hour.
the school zones and the work zones, I don't have any
Right.
problem with, but
But the second
some
that
of
a
these
school zone, so
other
take,
indiscriminate
but take
uses.
PIS, for example, right?
Yeah.
It's a school zone, but or better yet, take Stephen Carey High School, right?
Yeah.
It's a school zone.
Yeah.
But you can't place one on the highway. You can't do it. Even though those kids, you can watch every day, they'll go from Stephen Decatur to Uncle Will's, or not Uncle Will's, Royal Farms. You can watch it, but yet there's it's a school zone, but no speed cameras can go on there. We're not trying to tackle that issue. That's a separate
hard to
one.
believe.
How about Concord County get one?
That's,
On Whitehall,
because I
next to
can
Whitehall.
tell you there's 150 right
Yeah.
here.
Oh, that's what I'm curious why Concord
I
County.
know there's one there.
I think you need the state's approval.
So,
You need the state's approval.
There's a distance from the schools.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
Fruitland, they got them everywhere.
But are they on that state highway?
They're not on 13.
Well, I think they
yeah.
are no, they're not on 13.
Yeah, they're not on 13.
But the schools are on
Yes,
13.
yes.
I mean,
I would
But
suggest,
backwards, yeah.
I would suggest, because the whole issue of, increased penalties with speed cameras is, a kind of a topic on its own. You've brought it up tonight. I think it might be helpful to start some of the conversations with the partners, to see, maybe there's a consensus that in a certain part that you're looking at, that we, can have, it helps when the county, municipal, and, there's always going to be a segment of the general public that does not like speed cameras, but if you're going to if you're going to put this on the table, I think it's going to need the coordination and support of the partners and tying it to safety and how it would make a difference.
And I think that's perfectly reasonable. Like, tonight is not a yes or a no. I said that at the start of the meeting. It's to put the ideas on the table that we
be
would
able
like
to make something happen there.
we would like to just have the conversation.
Proximity to them
So-
schools on that
I
113.
would ask that you try like those portable speed signs, like
Yeah,
speed limit
that's
is
a
this,
good-
you're doing this. Do all those different things, you know, even if you have to step up enforcement with them.
Our folks are there regularly, like our officers, if you ride 113, they're usually sitting right by the entrance to
Decatur Farms.
to Decatur Farms or
Like
Gall Creek. Yep, they'll sit there and they run them all the time. But that's a human asset, right?
Right.
And we know how dangerous that can be
I
too.
get it, but visible things like those mobile signs so that people realize, you know what I mean? And Christmas, you could do naughty and nice and all that kind of stuff, and, but it brings awareness to it, you know?
And we're not opposed to those things, but I think that a topic of the conversation should also be, is there maybe a better way that is not putting our officers always pulling a car over? We know that can be dangerous. There's sometimes maybe a better way, and it may be those speed signs that flash and look like police cars. It might be, but I just want this to be on our radar as part of a conversation, so.
Right. I understand that.
Particularly when it's the proximity of a school.
Correct.
to a
I can be
metro.
convinced. I mean, I voted for photo
We're not
enforcement on people passing the school bus.
That's really all we have. I would say that Councilmember Nur brought to my attention an error in the agenda. We have comments from the council, comments from the mayor and adjournment, but no comments from the three of you. So we'll turn it over to comments from the three of you. We'll start with Senator Carrozza, then go to our actual delegate, Charles Otto, and then we'll go to our proxy delegate, Delegate Hartman.
Well, he's chairman of the county delegation.
All right. So if you want to yield to him, I'll let that be your all's decision, but Senator.
Thank you, and I appreciate when you pull us together and, lay out the agenda and start these conversations, especially now as we lead up to session. Just wanted to share with you, when we have worked together in the past, we all should be really excited about the fact that Buckingham Elementary School is moving on, that we went from a position where the state was not going to fund a new Buckingham Elementary School, and we knew how important that was. We had Ocean City Elementary School that came online, and then Shao, and then Berlin's turn, and they were changing the rules on us. That proposal about possibly combining Buckingham with Berlin Intermediate School, that was obviously something that would have been disastrous. So it really was a community effort, and I know that it was brought up in our meetings in the past, and I wanted to thank everybody who was involved in that. Really was a community team effort. I also just wanted to comment, because you talk about, we've spent a lot tonight talking about community. The community center is exciting, and I wanted just to share with you, because right before I came to this meeting, I was at the Berlin Library, and of course they're set up with their haunted library. And first of all, that Berlin Library is such a gem. I mean, it's a true jewel, not only for Berlin, but for Worcester County and the Shore. And what a clever way with that whole team to pull new people in. And, there were people, I was there tonight, and there were people coming in, and some knew and some didn't know, and to watch those children and their parents. And again, when we have these assets that are fairly significant financial cost at every level, municipal, county, state, federal, when we have these assets, but then when you see, when you see the results. So I'm glad we talked a lot about the community center that really seems to be building across the board, and I'm really glad to hear that you have these other sources of funding. So in many cases, we'll have communities that come to us for a project and say, we need this amount of money for a bond, and no one has skin in the game, and they come right to the state. Those are much more difficult for us to move forward with. Something like this, I think we can build it. So, but definitely will be engaging with you, being on the Energy Committee, on specifics of this moving forward, and certainly will take you up on the invitation to make the visit as well. So.
To the power.
And we can't say enough about
Let me
Buckingham.
know about that.
Thank you. I went to Buckingham. It's the same school.
I saw you just like
Same
up,
exact
right?
school,
Right.
but yes.
Nice school.
Well, we need a nice school, yes. Buckingham's
I
great.
think it is a nice school.
It is,
You
but it's long
and
overdue.
the county's maintained it well, and it's time to move along and improve, so
Right.
we're all together, and we've had a good conversation, and like I say, I'm open to persuasion on certain things, but I'm not a speed camera enforcement person.
The only thing we ask for is
But,
good dialogue together. That's it. We can get through everything else.
But the work zones and the school zones, I do care about, and I think there ought to be something. If there's some reason they're not putting them out there, there's a problem.
I don't know what.
Yeah.
That's what I
We would have to ask.
I mean, I wouldn't
Steve
say
specifics,
change
It was
it.
not, we were very clearly told that it was not something that was going to happen.
And if it's on state highway, we'll have to talk to the district engineer and find out what's the problem.
Thank you. We really do.
Well, I
Our delegate by proxy.
appreciate you being here. It's, the way the districts kind of, my district wraps around Berlin, so many things are.
It's like a hug.
It's a kind of smell from your neighboring delegate. So it just makes sense that I'm here, because so many things overlap. But just to show you that I actually do read these packets, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Water flow, 500,000 gallons per day, wastewater 750. So are you serving in the town places that are supplied by well?
We do serve water to customers that are not on our sewer. I don't know if we serve sewer to folks that, the
There are a
numbers.
few.
Because if you have 500,000 gallons of water and you're getting
It's the cap.
750,000
No,
gallons.
no, it's the cap. So the way that means is that we
Okay, I
can
got you.
treat up
Cap.
to 700.
I thought that's what you were doing on the average or something.
No.
So thank you
But
for
we do
that.
serve water to customers that are on well.
Okay, very good.
Some.
So, and it-
But the reason that's really there, we had a conversation in Annapolis about the size of wastewater treatment plants for one of the bills you were working on. And you had asked what our threshold was. So I wanted to make sure, I gave it to you last year, I wanted to give it to you again this year, just so that it's on the top of mind. If you're looking, hey, I got this bill coming through and the threshold's 1 million gallons per day. Berlin doesn't hit that, right?
Right.
We're 750,000 gallons per day.
And you reminded me by bringing up just your whole water and wastewater treatment plan. I was really impressed with my visit there, and also the fact that you are participating in the apprenticeship program.
For water and electric. We are the only, we were the first, maybe? For electric, definitely.
Yes.
I don't know about water, but
And
we have apprenticeship programs.
Yeah, I think I met your apprentice that was coming on board, and, it just, talk about a win-win, you all having the need and then having, being able to take advantage of the program through the Maryland Rural
Right.
Water Association, and that's growing, but that was impressive because it was early on. And I'm on the Apprenticeship 2030 Commission, and there's a lot of pressure to expand apprenticeships in the public sector. So here, Berlin deserves credit for, kind of leading the way there.
And part of that, I serve on the business pack with Steve Decatur. And part of that is, as you were saying, like the apprenticeship programs. And we've been trying to get, so one of the challenges, it's not on our agenda, but we'll talk just for a moment about it. One of the challenges we face is that if a business wants to have a social media intern, right, or a communications intern, the small businesses don't have enough full-time personnel to really do that. So we've been trying to leverage that and put an intern over at under our Economic and Community Development Department that's open and accessible to small businesses. But part of that is funding. So we have these pathways of internships that we're trying to champion at the high school level across Maryland. But sometimes it doesn't come with the ability to really fund some of those things, so they do have to be paid in some respects. So just food for thought.
And
but-
Brian Phillips, I believe, has been working on that. He's been, we have pulled him into this Apprenticeship 2030 Commission because he has he's front lines. He understands both the employers and what the needs are of the employers, but also what the school systems need. We're going to be coming out with recommendations that will give the local school systems more flexibility and more incentives for the employers. So, but they are focusing on increasing the public apprenticeships as well. So, and it was really, to have one in my district, to have you all, and also in Chrisfield, and to see that, and in Salisbury, that there's been a start already. We're a little bit ahead of the rest of the state, so that's good to hear.
When you and I were on the council, Tim brought up, our electric utility director brought up the idea of starting this apprenticeship program for electric, because we couldn't get line work.
Right.
And we had a lot of folks that were after
got
year
a lot.
retirement. Well, we started we bid on his idea, and then it was really cool because in the past 2 years, we've had the first 2 graduates that have gone all the way through the start to the end of the apprenticeship
And
program.
they're staying with you.
They're staying
And
with
that's, we
It's
want the
really
we
good.
want the retention.
And you figure these folks, they can go out and make a lot of money
That's good news.
working in the electric field.
These
Not
examples
not your
help
residential
me
electric, but
advocate
commercial,
for
Right.
this.
Yeah.
high power. So
That's
Very
good.
cool.
That's congratulations.
Local room is always best.
Yeah, I like it. So, all right, we'll turn it over to comments from the council. We'll start and end with Vice President Burrell.
Well, I just want to thank you all for your representation and being available enough to come and sit and have this conversation with us. And Senator Rosa, each time I'm in your presence, I'm always impressed. I'm always impressed by your knowledge of the subject matter and the resources you bring to a discussion. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. It's a team effort.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Nerd.
Yeah, I too want to say thank you for all you do for the state and for the county, but more importantly for helping Berlin become the success it is. I mean, you guys play a significant role in that. Projects like the community center wouldn't happen without your backing and support. So it's very, very much appreciated. And of course, having meetings like this is paramount. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Green.
Maybe I didn't want to not say thank you, so thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time, too. I did have a question for you, actually, on the room tax increase. So I believe the local delegation supported the enabling legislation to allow the home rule counties to increase the room tax, correct?
The Washoe County hotel tax?
Yes.
So the county has to act on that.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, right, yeah. So we have not, from Berlin's, at least unless the administration has, we haven't heard anything on that. But that is ready to act. I'm curious on our end if we should be asking that this ball get rolled in a little bit sooner than later so that we can, for our revenue projections for next budget. Because that is, you all, from your point, legislators.
You would be
got
turning
done-
to the county.
Yeah,
So the county commissioners have to unanimously support the idea before that you could.
yeah, I just wanted to confirm that you guys.
And we haven't
done
taken
with
a
it.
We're
letter.
done.
We haven't.
We got it passed and.
The town of Berlin has not taken a stance on that.
The focus has to be the county for you all.
Right.
But, I mean, so to answer your question on our end, we have not written anything or done anything.
I just
in
wanted
the
to confirm
county.
that the legislatures were done with it, that it's now in the county commissioner's hands.
And that was one of our successes
Yeah.
last year.
Yep.
Took quite a bit of effort, but we got it done. So.
Something came to mind, Zach.
Go ahead.
Hey, we didn't talk about anything, but I've been contacted more in the last couple of years about drainage in Berlin.
As far as
And is there
stormwater,
any projects going on that we can help with? I mean, it's not a challenge that we could fix,
We are working to try and.
but I'm
acquire-
willing to help or find help.
So we have a,
We're both on the committees.
we have noticed in the southwest portion of Berlin that roads become heavily impassable. We have to assist with getting people to and from work in those neighborhoods in that area during high rainfall events. With
It's not
that,
a time, but right now.
right, but I'll give you kind of a surface level. I won't take too long because I do like to end pretty closely. I'd like to respect everybody's time. But with that, there's a project that we are trying to advance for grant funding. We attempted to partner with the county on that project.
I
Because
think they got a role in it too.
well, because the way, the funding pathway for that is through program open space, is the easiest funding pathway, right? And with that, we are cognizant that other projects are in the wind with the county, and that our request would kind of be going a little ahead of that. We did lay out a strategy. We received notification from the county that that wasn't the way that the direction they wanted to head. So we are exploring another grant funding opportunity, which is the Green Space Equity Program. It's a new grant from 2023. I think this is going to be the first time that they actually have an application pool ready to go. We are in the process of we should have a submission on Friday. So hopefully.
Let me know if
We
you
will,
need.
we will keep you posted on what we may
What
need or
the
any
plan
assistance.
is, and
The
I'll
goal is
review
for us to
it,
submit on
and
Friday.
most likely we'll support it, because it has been something that your residents, your
It
constituents
means a lot.
have contacted
Yes.
me about.
It means a lot to the neighborhood
And my hands are tied to really directly do anything.
and the overall system. Because like one thing, it's interesting because like one component, it's like a wheel,
Yeah, but I
right?
can
If
help.
the spoke's bent on one side, it's gonna throw the whole bike off balance. And we gotta look at the whole system.
Yeah.
So I think whenever you apply for something at the state level, we'll do support letters. Also, depending, especially if it's an MDE issue or, whatever agency, in addition to the support letter, if we think it's a little bit more than, sometimes these are routine and you're on track and, it's a little bit more, let's just be on the record. Other times, it's competitive and you don't know where you stand, and particularly if these are requests that there's very strong community support that we can point to, at that point, we can do more than a letter. I mean, I'm happy to make phone calls just to say, oh, and the good news is with some of the more administration officials, there have been some continuity, for example, the Maryland Department of the Environment, Suzanne Dorsey, who we worked with, in the past, is still in the more administration. So, and she has been down here on a regular basis. So my point is, going back to whatever the issue at hand might be, you might be working it, but if just letting us know as an FYI might be just additional support for your application or your request.
We will certainly be in touch probably after Friday, but we will certainly be in touch. I'm never shy to ask you all for support.
No,
But we
and,
do appreciate that. It
I
goes
don't
on.
know any time we turned you down, but.
I don't think so
I
either.
like to know the amount of money and what it's doing and.
If anything, I
And who's
think-
it going to?
If anything, I think the three of you have helped provide some better insight into some things that maybe we have overlooked, and we really appreciate that, to help strengthen the case,
Yes,
right? Which is
absolutely.
really helpful. So
I
I'll,
want success, not.
we do too. So I'll end with my final remarks, which are just thank you. We started these, 3 or 4 years ago together? I think they've been very helpful. One, you get to hear a little bit about what's on our plate and what we're dealing with. But really, I feel like with all three of you, I have really good dialogue. The town of Berlin has really good dialogue. My colleagues do. So we appreciate that. And it goes a long way in trying to get solutions to shared problems, or challenges, I should say.
And congratulations on all the successes for the town of Berlin. It's impressive.
You said team, and it does take a team, and we've got a pretty good one, so.
Yeah.
All right, Vice President Burrell?
Move to adjourn.
Yes, second.
Mayor Snyder, can I take a picture with?
let's get a group photo.
I brought the for you. I have the stand.
Everybody together.
Yeah, with the stand, and let's just take a picture of you all. This is awesome.
So, do that, that works for the Sun Paper.
Oh, yeah, that's